Hi, welcome once again. So we proceed. We are looking at business environments and then the risks that are associated with a business environment. This is something we've seen, we've heard in the past, we've known it. So basically, we'll center on the external environment. There's the internal environment as well. Um, we can undertake always across the external and then internal environments. We can undertake SWOT analysis. Okay, which cuts across almost every aspect. Usually, the strength and weaknesses talks of the internal situation, and then the threats and then the opportunities we look at external. But we'll center more on the external environment where we're looking at the pestel or the pest um, factors. Okay, so we will dwell more on that section. We're looking at this because of the context of business and then the definition of business. Okay. So as usual, I would say if you have any follow-up questions, challenges, kindly stay in touch with David or myself and we'll give you the needed support that you need. All right. Okay, so at the end of this section, we want to see the difference between the narrow and then the broad definition of business as a concept. Okay. And then we look at the main external environment that impacts operational activities and which determines the future going concern status of the company. And what we'll be looking more is the risk inherent or that emanate from the external factors and how companies could logically and sequentially manage this risk. Okay. We also look at corporate social responsibility and we realize that it forms part of the ethical environment in which companies operate. And then, of course, based on the same concept of corporate social responsibility, we'll see how the company plays its role as a corporate citizen. Okay. So of course, businesses cut across business. The concept of business is a diverse one. It cuts across almost every aspect of operational activities. So whether for profit or not for profits, whether tech sector, organizations, quoted or unquoted, they all fall within the purview of business as a concept. Okay. But of course, what would differentiate one business organization from the other has to do with the size, the market share, the market power. Okay, the ownership structure, whether by guarantee, by shares. Okay, legal status or structure, the industry in which it operates, the geographical reach, whether it's a local, national, or global. Okay, the profit motive orientation, and then the activity type, so on and so forth. Okay, but of course, like I said, our main focus is to look at the internal and then the complex external. The focus again will be on the complex external. Okay, this is because the complex external environments are always changing. They are dynamic. So in order to be able to critically pick up the risk which develop from these evolving situations, we have to examine it every now and then. Okay. Of course, managers are tasked with managing both internal and external risks that come from outside or within the organization that affect the operations. If only they want their operations to be effective and efficient, and of course to be economic with their finances, with their resources. At the end of the day, the intention is to ensure that we get some optimum satisfaction to all stakeholders who are influenced or who influence the operations of the organization. We limit ourselves to SWOT, okay, to PESTEL, and then to opportunities and threats of the SWOT, okay, most especially. Now, business is defined in two different ways, categories, okay. We all know business, basically from a layman's point of view, to deal with where we undertake any activity with the aim of making profit. That's what we will say from a layman's point of view. Technically, business is looking at, is there any scarcity, problem of scarcity? Can I provide with this? Okay, so you go out and scan the environment and realize that there is this opportunity coming here because people like this particular resource. I need to provide them and make money, okay, or just profit from them, or sometimes to save lives, not just to make money, okay. But of course, every society in which we operate have some problems of scarcity. Every one way or the other, they lack something. Okay, in terms of manufacturing angle, manufacturing organizations, they will always be looking for some raw materials, okay? So farmers out there must also produce to give it to them. So we get businesses cutting across the demand and the supply ends of life, okay, of any business operations. Therefore, you see these businesses transforming the inputs, the factors of production, the raw materials, the labor, okay, the equipment, into output, goods and services, so that the consumers who crave for this will get it. This is what we term the broad definition of business, okay. But of course, we have the narrow conception, which is normally limited to the private sector, business only. Okay, so the broad definition simply is looking at not just making profit, but more of meeting demands, meeting demands of consumers, of people in the society. Whereas the narrow definition is only normally looking at business as profit-oriented activity. Okay, so any activity that cuts across that deals with solving the issue of demand against supply or trying to solve the issue of scarcity is business. Okay, not just for profit only. So if in real life sense, you realize that people are starving of clean water in deprived countries, and you think you can set up a venture where you can provide them with that clean potable water, not because you want benefit, but because you want to save life, that is business. Okay, that is more of a bigger picture than just the narrow picture that then I will have to get clean water, sell it to them and make profit. That becomes the narrow conception against the broader conception. Okay. Now we'll look at the environmental analysis. Remember, companies operate not in vacuum, but they operate in, in an environment. Okay. They are influenced by this environment. They also influence this environment. So if you want to survive, make sure you choose an appropriate business environment which you think can support your activities, and you can also help support their system. Okay. So what we have to do as a business, yes, is to make profit sometimes, but also to ensure that we live within the confines of the environment. We get the legitimate resource. Legitimacy is more or less a resource from the environment, from the system, giving you the right to operate. Okay. So it requires the organizations to understand its surrounding conditions so that we can adapt to any change that pops up. So environmental analysis is really important. What kind of environment am I operating in? Is it a static one? Is it a stereotyped one? Is it ever changing with technological advancements? I need to weigh all these options so that I can be able to meet the demands and the requirements of the system. A lot of analytical techniques are used: pest, SWOT, stakeholder analysis. But like I said, we'll deal more with the O and T of the SWOT, a little bit of stakeholder analysis, and then, of course, the pest as a whole. Okay. Of course, whatever we are going to discuss can be applied within the context of the organization to look at the strengths and the weaknesses as well. Now we have the economic environment, which deals with basically microeconomic and macroeconomic variables in terms of profitability, monetary. Okay. So it is looking at the business being an actor in the context of the economic problem and investigating its role in shaping economic efficiency. So are we contributing enough to ensure that there is some resource helping with the GDP per capita so that the economy can be seen as developing or developed, or sustaining its status as a developed country. Okay. So again, the macroeconomic issues, we look at the global economic picture, forex fluctuations across national and transnational levels. Okay. Now the perspective here is to consider the elements of profit and surviving as a going concern, especially from the economic environment. So inflation, is it affecting our work? Interest rate, is it affecting our work? Okay. Forex exchange, is it? What about pricing? So all those elements which will impact our profit maximization elements, okay, or shareholder wealth maximization comes under the economic environment. Therefore, it is important and very paramount that we look at the financial dimensions of the company. Okay. If there's no profitability, of course, then you know that your financial sustainability can be questioned. Okay. Now, to sustain this economic efficiency, to survive profit wise, we need to always contrast the corporate risk management against its economic environment to see what economic efficiency we can leverage on. Three guiding questions are key, which we need to look at. One, what are we producing? What can we produce to allocate? So that's the allocative efficiency, looking at value for money when consumer sovereignty is achieved or when opportunity costs are minimized. Okay. Then the second question has to do with the productive efficiency. How do we produce it? Okay. Take care of take advantage of any competitive edges that you have over your suppliers. Okay. If you can negotiate over your competitors, if you can negotiate well with suppliers to take advantage of some discounts, use it, okay? So that at least you can know that in your production system, you've saved some amount. Then again, after we have produced, what do we do? Do we consume it our own? No, we distribute. So we look at the distributive efficiency. Fairness and equity is achieved when you are sending the items onto the shelf, you label it correctly, okay? So that people will know that this is gluten free, this one has pork fat, and it's not good for people who do not like it. So, three different questions will always drive the economic environment. What do we produce? How do we produce it? And who gets what we have produced? All right. Three. Now, let's move on to the technological environment. So, technology, looking at productivity improvements across the value chain. So we're looking at quality enhancements, okay, product differentiation, so that people will see our products to be quite different from what the other is offering. Take, for example, an iPhone with their iOS. Their iOS is unique to them only compared to Android, which is unique to Samsung or to Google phones, okay? So these are very key, basic and key considerations which every organization must consider are three. One, would I be the technology leader or I'll follow the leaders? Will I be the best or be with the best or follow after them? Okay. Number two, will I look at undertaking some basic research and development or just some experimental research? And then number three, how do I apply what I have researched? Okay. No wonder in accounting we always want to recognize the development stage than just the research, because some people will just undertake basic research and sometimes they realize, well, cost has been spent, so let's capitalize it to make good use of the accounting treatment. There are key dimensions in technological environments which impact risk management. So one, invention, new processes to meet competition. So we need to just not be static or stable with what we have. We need to put up some new processes to meet competition, okay? Product innovation to ensure we take advantage of competitiveness, competitive advantages, okay? And then process innovation, which is also competitive advantage and gives the company the edge over the market, so you tend to become a market leader. And of course, applying the knowledge that you've acquired through your research and intensive study to production. So key dimensions will be the invention, product and process innovation, and of course, application of these innovative and inventions to practice, to real life production processes. Now, again, with technological environment and its risk management, we need to successfully use all technological avenues to boost production and sustain our profitability, economic growth of the company, and of course of the global of the national system as a whole. Also, looking at a successful technological development depends on internal business enterprises and wider supportive public policy. So, of course, we may try to bring in some inventive ideas, some innovative ideas, okay, but what policy from the public supports this? Sometimes you realize there are some restrictions. Okay, you cannot just start um, producing or using 5G network in areas where the system IT policy doesn't allow. Also, the next thing we should look at is who can implement this at the workplace. If you end up bringing some innovative processes, product innovative innovation, process innovation, and nobody in the company can implement it, then of course you've just wasted money in terms of research and development of that technology. So we should always look at who can implement it in the workplace. Does the system support it? Are we going to violate any public policy or societal policies? Again, the benefits of technology should should supersede the cost. Okay, and normally we see these benefits being disputed between optimists and pessimists. Even with this lockdown situation which popped up, many folks have to fall out, even in academia, because some are just averse to technological advancement. So again, in the workplace, you see individuals who will be optimists, try to accept this technological advancement, but again, others will downplay it, thinking, no, this will come and disrupt our work. It will take jobs from people, and people will lose their livelihoods. So weigh both pros and cons to be sure that you are not losing a key staff because of technological advancement. For this technology comes in and the persons cannot do the work that is expected. So we take note of this. Political environment, the scope of politics. We're typically talking about politics, okay? So politics, looking at the competing views about society, how we want to live our lives. We want a good society, typically about politics, okay? So it also looks at the rules under which we live, collective decisions, okay? So we should all live per the rules under which the government or the state is being governed. Now, your idea of a good society might not be the same as mine. We all disagree. I may be conservative, you may be of the Labour Party's opinion. So there will always be conflict and frictions. It doesn't just happen between individuals, it also happens amongst companies, amongst businesses. There are some businesses who support the Labour Party when they are in power, and there are some businesses who will be happy that the Conservative Party is in power. So it is always a give and take situation, opposing views, disagreements here and there. Now, the agenda of the government in power, the question is, does it help the company? Okay, does it support the company, or does it go against the fundamental operations of the company? For example, note, should employers be able to hire and fire as they choose? So the government will always have a policy in place. I cannot just hire someone and fire the person the next day just because a little hitch has happened somewhere. Should they also be allowed to discriminate based on racial and sexual grounds because of your sexual orientation or your racial background? No. So there should be such policies. Okay. Can employees pay any wage without regard to the minimum or living wage set by the state? Okay, or so we always have to weigh these pros and cons. Of course, though the government will have its agenda, its policies, its regulations, but of course, some companies will always go around it. Some will still discriminate no matter what. They will still discriminate based on racial or religious or some some minor backgrounds, some sensitive backgrounds. Okay, so the way that economy is organized looms large in any concept of a good society. If we want the society to be termed good, conducive for businesses to operate, then of course the government in power, the political landscape will always determine. Let's look at the risk management in terms of political environment. So variety of ways. Okay, for example, the state will set the legal framework, like I said. It will tax businesses based on their profitability. It will also provide some services. Sometimes the state will even provide incentives, some subsidies, okay, some some tax-free avenues. Some back in developed countries, sometimes you get free zones board. Those are the boards where you go and operate, set up operations, and you're exempted from paying corporation tax for a number of years just because of your operations, or they are giving you the leverage to make enough profit and to expand and to create jobs. Okay. Also, they could also purchase goods. The government could purchase goods and services. They manage the economy, and they deal with other governmental and international organizations. Okay, sometimes the government can even intervene on your behalf if it happens that you are dealing with some overseas organization, especially when the output or the outcome of the transactions impact not just your company but the national system as well. So remember, the global political and economic systems are dynamic. They are not static, they change. Even in our country here, you realize that there will always be elections to choose members of parliament and the leader of the state here and there. It happens, okay? So there should always be some adjustment on the part of the company to ensure that they can relate with these changing landscape, and also to depend on the government here and there. Government also depends on them. So at the end of the day, the intention is to build a global business environment where we can interdepend on the state depends on us, we can relate with the state, okay, and to be able to operate, boost the national income, okay. So political power is exercised both below and above the level of the national state. So at the national state above, to the overseas, to global economies, we operate there. So that's why I'm saying the government could come in to step in and help you when there are some negotiations with international nations or international organizations. Again, it can be below where you manage your own thing. Government doesn't normally comes in. The politics of the game will still operate at your organizational level. Okay, so politics is concerned with choices and decisions that affect the whole society. So politics in the workplace, and it exists in every workplace, there is some politics. In the workplace can escalate or can develop into more of a national political system. Business is always part of this controversy. So the businesses find themselves in the heart of this give and take. And at the end of the day, they have to manage their relationships with the government. Let's look at the next environment, the legal environment. So we're talking of rules, laws, okay? Remember, laws are rules, but they are not moral requirements. They govern private relationships like contracts between one person and the other, one person and the state, and one person with an organization. Okay, so the intention here is to ensure that there's some form of equity and fairness. It's not really about morality. Okay, so businesses are required every now and then to comply with these status, these edicts, enactments, okay, and rules and regulations. It depends on the type of company or business you are running. Okay, sometimes we get acts of parliament which are passed to regulate the activities of the sole proprietors, the joint ventures, the partnerships, the companies, okay, the charities, name them. For example, talk of the Partnership Act, the Companies Act. These are acts of parliament which are enacted to ensure that they run or manage their activities within the confines of the law. Now, the laws are varied. It can be at the local level, the local council level, the national level, the regional level, or the international level. Now, the extent to which we rely on these laws, either at the national, regional, local, or international, depends on the size of the business, the scope of operations, and the coverage. Okay. Of course, international laws will also play a key role when we are moving or operating outside or across countries, okay, across boundaries. And these international laws will normally impact investor agreements across borders, economic growth and trade relations. Should there be any disagreement between the investor and then the government's unions, the state unions, these international laws come in place. Let's take an example of the Brexit and its impact on trade relations, investor agreement, cross-border relations, migration, bilateral and multilateral relations. So laws are key. The idea for laws in any business operation is to ensure harmony so that we can all operate peacefully, equitably, and fairly within the confines of the law, of the state machinery. The intention is to ensure there is some good society, okay, some good society, so that we can benefit everyone. The activities of the company can benefit everyone. Let's look at any risk management. And so I've put some quotations there. Section 172 of the Companies Act 2006 tells us that directors have the legal duty to consider the interests of their employees, the impact of their activities on the environment and then the community, and the desirability to keep a good reputation. So that's a requirement from the Companies Act, a law. It requires you to do that. If you look at Barkan's publication 2005, it says that managers and directors have a legal duty to put shareholders' interests above all others and no legal authority to serve other interests. Quite capitalism, right? Capitalist in nature. We'll look at that in the corporate social responsibility. It is almost supported by what Milton Friedman said. We'll look at that. Now, failure to comply with these laws, these regulations and treaties could put the company at risk. Okay, your license could be revoked. You know that customers could abandon your product. You could get some fines and levies. You could your very prospect of surviving as a going concern could be questioned. Laws are also equally important when there are mergers and acquisitions. Recently, there was this issue of Cengage Publications and then McGraw Hill trying to merge. And then the concern came up that no, if it happens, you can see that these guys will monopolize the publication sector in UK. So laws will have to be applied to ensure fairness, equity, harmony within the system. So if you don't comply with laws, if you don't comply with laws and you face the sanctions, the penalties, or your going concern status is questioned, your operations are undermined, of course, at the end of the day, your profitability could erode. You may be getting some contingent liabilities hanging on your neck. And once those debts materialize and you pay them, you realize all your profits are gone. Okay. So legal environment is very key. We should always assess the legal environment and assess the extent to which they can impact the business activities. It could be positive as well. It could be positive, not just negative. But we always look at ensuring that we maximize more of the up than um, suffering from the down effect, okay, upward effect and the down effect. All right, now we have the social or the society, culture, and then the cultural environment, okay. So, of course, any business activity operates within a framework of society. Like I said, the society gives you the legitimacy to operate. So, whatever we do as an organization, we should assess whether we're operating within the societal legitimacy that they've awarded us. Okay. Remember, society is always changing. Culture is always changing. So we always have changing tastes and fashions. Remember, human beings are aging, they are growing. So the population demographics will change. Okay. Now, for example, if we are looking at the demographic trends, the questions we should ask ourselves as business is that, do we consider human beings as economic resource, as labor? Or do we consider these human beings as just consumers? This should tell us how we have to respond to them. If your employees are not your consumers, then you see them as labor. So what you have to do is maximize the efficiency as much as possible. But if you see human beings as consumers, as customers, you must meet their needs, their demands, so that you ensure that we can get repeat purchases. Okay. Again, with this same dimension of demographics, consider the population size. Is it growing? Is it decreasing? Okay. And if it is growing, what proportion are of the older folks? What proportion are the older folks compared to the younger generations? Look at the structure, the age, the sex, the ethnic groups. Are we getting more migrants joining the system? Are we getting more skilled workers, social classes? Okay, so the population dynamic should always influence and tell the company what we should do and what we shouldn't do. For example, if we see that the system have more aged population, what do we do? What is the implication for the company? Labor supply, how would it be? Would we get the required talent to work with? What about age discrimination? If I'm 75 years right now and I'm applying for a job that requires somebody between the ages of 25 and 20 or 30, of course, I'll be discriminated against. Okay. So at the end of the day, if you don't do a critical analysis of the market, you realize that you have a gray market, older generations. And that's what recently the newspapers telling us, that UK is having an aging population, less young guys. Okay. I don't know why. It's strange. Okay. There are more dynamics to it. Okay. Now, Heath and Sean did a research, and I'm quoting a particular section of their work directly. They are saying a number of ethnic minority groups, notably the Pakistanis, Bangladesh, Black Caribbean, and Black African men, continue to experience higher unemployment rates within the UK, greater concentrations in routine and semi routine work, and lower hourly earnings. Unequal treatment on the grounds of race or color is likely to be a major factor, which underlies the pattern of ethnic penalties. So, if I'm a black skin, just because I'm a black skin, and I'm from the minority and I don't have that qualification, of course, you face that penalty, because you get some people, not really issue of racism or discrimination, but because of their caliber, their status, their background, doing the white collar jobs. Okay, but this research from Haight and Chung shows that more of the black and ethnic minority groups are more prone to undertaking lower earnings. Um, they are more. they are more within the higher unemployment rate, doing routine or semi-routine or menial jobs. But of course, the trend is changing. Okay, the trend is changing where we have some equity and some fairness running across the system. Again, there could be shifts in occupational order. Okay, so again, a direct quote from Weatherly and author's book says that a change from an occupational structure will will heavily dominated by manual work to one where there was a fairly even division between three broad categories. So fairly, you see that cross section or that kind of split amongst the professional managerial works, the service sector, the intermediary occupations, and then the manual work. Okay, so we are seeing this evolution, this shift where people are actually blending manual and service activities. So we see it evenly spread. We will not get an exact one third, one third, one third if we are to split them. But of course, we are seeing the shift. So people are not just relegated to manual work, but you see them migrating from manual to more of professional managerial service oriented. And we see others also falling in between the intermediary who are linking the service, the managerial, the white collar to the blue collar. So they are in between. It happens, it's working. Okay. Now let's look at risk management dimensions. We've looked at the immediate one where I'm saying that what is the implication of an aging population on the organization. Now again, if you look at a decline in working class, what is the implication for the business? So class structure is rooted in the economy, no two ways about that. Employment relations and attitudes to work could change, okay? Social mobility and talent pool could also change, okay? Once we see it is decline, of course, it could change, it could affect us. And consumer behavior could also be impacted. At the end of the day, they don't get what they want and they could react. Like I said, the UK population is a growing one, it's an aging population. But of course, we've seen UK having migrated to more of multicultural, cosmopolitan society. So we have a mixture of all races and tribes and ethnic groups within. Now, there could be an option to regulate the migration, the immigration system, to allow the importation of high quality labor from across the world into the UK. Again, we could also consider that let this, if we don't get the right caliber of people, if the immigration laws cannot be relaxed, said that we get high caliber of people coming, immigrants coming in, then what we have to do is that those who are currently in the system who are aged, what do? Let's extend their retirement age. Okay, let's give them lower NI contributions or income taxes to motivate them to continue working for us, for the system. At the end of the day, we leverage on their talent, okay? And then of course, succession planning is key. For sure, anyone who is aged will leave the scene. At the end of the day, if not for death, it could be weakness, tiredness, cannot work at the rate at which the young blood will work. So let's develop new skills, talents, and then put in place effective succession planning so that when the aged move out of the scene, the younger ones can also take over. Let's look at the next or the final bit of environment. So we've always known the environment to be socio-cultural, legal, environmental. Okay, the natural. There's another one where I didn't plug it in the natural environment or the environment, which we are always aware. We are hearing of COP26, which is something very key. Okay, whatever we do in our situations now as an organization, we should ensure it doesn't harm the environment in which we live. Okay, otherwise, if the environment is gone, if COVID breaks out, can we work? We have seen what environmental hazards have caused the organization. So I intentionally left that one out because it's something we should all brainstorm and look at and play a key role in it. Okay. Now we have the ethical environment besides the pest we have looked at. So let's look at some three key terms. One term we have already looked at in terms of business ethics. So I'll jump through that one quickly. But corporate responsibility, simply we are talking of the situation where companies will put in place both social and environmental concerns in their daily operations. So it's not just business mindedness, just being um, careful about making profits. No, but what about our social interactions? Our interactions with the social world, with the environmental world, okay, and with key stakeholders who could impact or whom we can impact. in terms of operations. The second term is corporate citizen. We always want the company to be termed a corporate citizen. Don't be a spectator, be a citizen, okay? So understand and manage a company's wider influence on society for the benefit of the company and the society as a whole. So be a responsible citizen. If you see a field going on somewhere as a company, fix it. Okay, if not, when the society suffers, you will also suffer because you depend on the society to survive. Okay. Then, like I said, we look at business ethics. So I'll run over that quickly. And there's some sample ethical theories we've looked at. Justice and fairness, we have that one. Utilitarian, deontological. You remember all this virtue, all those theories. So I'm gonna just hit on these two. Just these two dominant ethical theories. Utilitarian is saying that right is defined as that which maximizes good outcomes for the majority. For the majority. So if we have 60 million and 40, or let me say 45 million could benefit and the 15 will not, let's do it for them. Let's do it for them. And it normally drives the issue of, maybe we see it in movies where we say, well, let's blast the whole, when there's a hijack and we think that the terrorists could destroy lives and some few human beings in the air could die to save the millions of population. They do it. We are seeing it in movies, but it happens in real life where we're looking at the outcome benefiting the majority and the minority suffering. Let me put it that way. Now, deontological is saying that, listen, the key principles are right in themselves regardless of the outcome, such as, is it wrong to murder? If I see someone coming to attack me and my family, should I watch? I kill him. And then they say, well, the end justifies the means. Deontological. Okay. Now, either of these is not sufficient for ethical practice. The first one is saying that, listen, the good outcome should just benefit a few, not all. The second one is saying that the end justifies the means, but that's not what we want. Okay, the end doesn't really justify the means. We want to see equity. The system should be clean, ethical, do what is right. Okay, save all. Okay, save all. Do as much as you can to save everyone on the ship. Okay, don't save the majority and leave the rest. Okay, and if someone is coming to attack you and the family, use some ways and means to save that person who is coming to attack you and save yourself and your family. Okay, don't kill, don't murder. Okay, that's what we are saying. So ethically, we want to ensure that everyone benefits. Now, Milton Friedman made arguments about businesses and their existence and in terms of ethics. What he's saying is that businesses, their main aim is to make money for their shareholders, to maximize shareholders' wealth because they provided the money to set up the business. Okay, so they're saying taking on social responsibility is just a burden to that company. It should be the work of the politicians, of the government. They have to fix the system. But today we know it's not right. Okay. Today we are saying that, listen, the business is also a servant to society. The business is also part of society. It should also work to fix the society. Okay. So Friedman's arguments are flawed. There are some criticisms. Like I said, business, you are part of the society. Play your role. Don't say it's just for the government. The government should fix it. Sometimes the arguments can hold because the businesses pay. They pay what? Taxes. So they think government should use the taxes to fix the society. Sometimes it makes sense, but no. Let's look at it. So, like I said, business affects society. So they have responsibility for the society to not to harm the society, but to create good. Okay. So relate to all shareholders as good as you can because they provided the money, but also the other stakeholders, the customers, the lobby groups, the politicians, the society, the suppliers, even your competitors. Make sure that you supply them, you help them so that they can all ensure that the system is sustained, we all live in a good atmosphere, okay? Under Friedman's view, he's talking of liberal individualism, more or less what somebody would say, each one for himself, God for us, or let's live our lives. Capitalism driven. So he's saying freedom is of major value, autonomy is a major right. However, what we should know is that freedom exists in a social context. Okay, so where the freedom of others has to be considered. So don't just think of yourself as a business. I need to make profits and safeguard my employees at the detriment of the others. No, You don't think about the society, it's just about you know. Freedom is in the society. If the system is not free, you will suffer yourself. Okay. So the broad concept of business is very important. We should look at that. That business is not just about making profit, but it's about creating good and value for the society. You affect someone, somebody also affects you. You affect all stakeholder groups across board. But of course, there are two theories under stakeholder, the normative, okay, or the ethical, and then we have the managerial. But the ethical is saying that's what we are saying here. The ethical is saying satisfy all. Managerial is saying, no, 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 we cannot satisfy all. It's not realistic. Okay. Listen, stakeholder groups are so broad, the boundaries cannot be set. When we talk of stakeholders, we are saying that any activity or any human being who can affect or be affected by the organization. Do you know that even children who are yet to be born are stakeholders? Do you know that? Posterity is part of stakeholder. Do you know that the natural habitat, the tree that is yet to grow in the next 5 years, is a stakeholder? So how can I plan for an unborn child, a child who will be born 10 years from now? So the managerial is saying that let's select the key stakeholders and support them, okay, and meet their needs. But ethical is saying no, 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 no. Whether the person is yet to be born 10 years or 5 years from now, we satisfy all. Okay, that's the tricky aspect here. So all of you, those of you who will be adopting stakeholder theories in your further research, try and be be prudent in the choice of particular stakeholder theory that you will use. Okay. So to wrap up, finally, the corporate responsibility and its risk management has two dimensions. We are looking at responsibility. How do we define responsibility? In the form of an agency where the company serves as the manager serves as an agent and against the society, okay, against the principals, okay. So what am I doing? What is the purpose? What is the value I'm gonna create? What effect will it have on the society and the environment? Be an agent of change, okay. I need to be accountable. Accountable to who? Is it just my shareholders? No, but to all stakeholders, okay. Of course, we cannot account to all stakeholders, but ideally, why not look out for the key stakeholders and then meet their needs? Okay, it does demand that actions and ideas can be questioned. So I don't just provide financial statement to shareholders, but I should provide some sustainability reports to others. Okay, and I'm responsible for everyone. Those I think I can identify. Now the range of responsibility could be broad. To who? For example, let's try just three examples. Shareholders, profitability is key to them. They want to see the going concern status of the organization. Future generations, posterity, whatever the company can do to affect future generations, do it. That's what we term as sustainable development. Okay, we're trying to provide the needs of the current generation without compromising on the needs of providing for the future generations. So sustainability is key. Sustainable development. Okay, and then to professional bodies, for example, Institute of Civil Engineering. Whatever the civil engineer manager does affects the integrity of that body. So it's broad. Okay, it's broad. All right. So that is it. Try and find, brainstorm through the workshop questions. Okay, the workshop questions and see how best you can brainstorm. Remember, um, this has to do with applying theory to real life situations. Okay, at the end of the day, a critical analysis and assessment is key to ensure that companies will always have the leverage to provide value for the society, and in return, they themselves will enjoy whatever value they have provided for society. Thank you, and see you soon. Bye.